Okay. Hello and welcome to course rep training. This section is looking at collecting feedback. So we'll go over the types of feedback that you should be collecting as a rep and different methods of collecting feedback that you can be using to get information from students. So to start off with the very basics, what feedback should you be collecting as a rep? You are an academic rep. So you should be collecting feedback on students' academic experience on their course or within the department. And it should be feedback that impacts a significant number of your course year group because you represent the majority of students, essentially. So academic reps are not for personal issues that affect an individual, even if these issues are academic, such as appealing a grade, and they're not really for feedback that's to do with non-academic campus activity, such as parking on campus, food on campus, anything to do with the wider non-academic student experience. Now, I'll caveat this with saying that just because that isn't necessarily part of your job doesn't mean you won't get feedback on these things, and doesn't mean you can't help students with these issues. So, for example, if a student comes to you saying that they'd like to appeal a grade, there are places that you can signpost these students to get them support in doing so. And if like over 50% of your course cohort are saying, hey, rep, we really want you to speak about how hard it is to find parking on campus. We really want you to sort that issue out for us. There are still places that you, as a rep, can make sure that feedback is heard by the university. So don't worry, there are ways that you can resolve that feedback, but your main focus as a course rep and an academic rep is academic feedback relating to your course. With that in mind, you can collect feedback on what's going well in the course, what could be better on the course, and any new ideas students have for the course. These are 3 areas that we recommend you focus on, and they all have different benefits. So when you're looking at what's going well on the course, you're helping your lecturers understand what they should keep doing, what on the course is really helping students learn, and what should they continue doing, whether that's type of workshops, a guest lecturer that they invite in, or something like that, for future years of students. Looking at what could be better on the course is fairly obvious. It helps lecturers identify any issues that the course is having and resolve them, both for future years of students, so students in the years below you and who are even yet to apply to a course, but raising what could be better on the course also helps lecturers resolve things for you guys as current students as you're studying. Reps are a really good method for lecturers to resolve issues on the go and make sure the course is up to scratch for you guys whilst you're studying. Any new ideas students have for the course is just a great way for you guys as students to work in collaboration with your lecturers to make your course your own. Yes, it's a really good opportunity for you guys to suggest things that would help improve your learning, and lecturers are always keen to hear what you guys as students have to say to improve your academic experience. So a really common way of collecting feedback for academic reps is sending out online surveys. These themselves have their pros and cons, and I'm going to talk through some different examples of laying out online surveys now, and talk through the benefits and the cons of each of them. So this first survey, as you can see, I've forgotten to turn the anonymous feature on, so it will collect my information when I fill it in. And that's an example of a con of this survey, is that it's not anonymous. You can trace it back to who submitted. And students may not like that. They may want to give you feedback in an entirely anonymous way with no trace of who submitted the information. The other thing about this survey is that it asks 3 questions, looking back on the categories I showed you before: what's going well on the course, what could be better on the course, and do you have any new ideas for the course? Now, these questions are very vague. So part of the disadvantage of this survey is that if you send it out to students, they may struggle to come up with things to say because they're not being guided on a specific topic or being prompted in any way. So yes, it's harder for people to necessarily come up with stuff to give you or any information to give you. However, there is a use for surveys like this. You may want to have a vague survey like this on your online learning platform at all times. So on Ellie for Exeter students or the Learning Space for Falmouth students, you could ask your lecturers to put a link to this form that students can access throughout the year. And it could be a way that students submit feedback to you without contacting you directly. You could change the settings on the form so that it notifies you when someone fills it in, and then you know if a student has reached out to you via this form. So that's one benefit of a vague form like this. Another thing you can do with forms is use a feature that I love called branching. So I primarily use Microsoft Forms in my job, but I imagine platforms like Google Forms and SurveyMonkey also have branching. And what this form is doing is using branching to make sure that students from different pathways on a course have a tailored experience. So if you select that you're on pathways 2D animation, you'll be asked how the 2D animation modules are, whereas if you select 3D animation, it will change to how are you finding the 3D animation modules. The benefit of this is if you're on a course where students can pick different modules or go down different pathways, you can use a form setup like this to ensure that you're getting the experience of all students on your course. So you can check the results, see how many 3D animation students versus 2D animation students submitted to the form. And it also means you can tailor questions to them. So I don't know much about the animation course, so I can't put in specific module codes, but you could be asking them about specific modules that only they're studying, or different software that only they're using, and so on and so forth. And then the rest of the form even asks general questions that students can fill in case the questions that you asked don't cover feedback that they want to give. And at the bottom, it gives you the option to leave your details if you're happy for the reps to contact you for more information. So the benefit of doing that as a rep is it means that if someone submits some feedback and you're not really sure what they're saying, like you want more clarification on what their issue is or what the idea that they're suggesting is, if they've left their email, you can get in touch with them and say, thanks for filling in my form. I just wanted to get some clarification on what you mean by XYZ bit feedback. So this form is anonymous, but it gives that option to not be anonymous so that reps can follow up for more information. And finally, Form 3. So this form is great because it uses different formats of questions. So this is to what extent do you agree kind of question, and it gives the reps a quick overview of what students are struggling with / what's going really well for students. So are students understanding how to access online resources? Do students know what they need to do for their assessments? Are students understanding how their theory lectures connect to what they need to do for their assessments? And do students understand how to access equipment that they need for their course? It gives a quick overview. It gives qualitative information, quantitative information even, on what's going on, and some quick stats. Then we've got questions like, how are you finding module THP 103? How are you finding workload on the course? So these questions are still vague, still open questions, but they are focusing on specific topics. So we could imagine in this case that the reps have overheard students complaining about module THP 103, saying that they're really struggling with it or have some issues with it. And so they put in this question to find out more about why students might be having an issue with that module. Equally, they might have overheard students struggling with the workload, and they want to find out more about why students are struggling. It's okay to do this. You don't need to keep your questions vague. You can ask questions on specific topics. The only thing is that you need to make sure these questions are not leading questions. So it would be a leading question if the question was, why are you struggling with the workload on the course? Because that implies that everyone is struggling with the workload on the course, which might not be true. So asking, how are you finding the workload on the course, keeps it vague, means that students who aren't struggling can be like, yeah, it's going great. And you can just identify if it's actually an issue or if you've just overheard 1 or 2 people complaining about it. Finally, some of the usual questions. Is there anything about the course that could be improved? What are your favourite aspects of the course? And do you have any ideas of how to make the course better? These questions just allow people to add any information that you may not have asked for, any feedback that they want to give you that you didn't necessarily know they were going to ask. So this is a good variety. It's quite a short form, quick to fill in, but it focuses on particular issues that reps know are coming up, and still allows students to add further information. So those are some examples of online surveys. But there are pros and cons to online surveys. So as I've said, online surveys can be anonymous, and they're quite good because students can fill them in their own time, because you can send a link in a group chat and students can get to them when they get to them. But students may forget to fill them in, leaving you with no feedback to take to meetings. It's quite common for, or it's a recurring struggle for reps, that they may send out a feedback form and no one responds, no matter how many times they repost the link in the chat. So it's good to make sure that you're trying different methods of collecting feedback throughout your time being a rep, not just relying on online surveys. And these methods could be focus groups, small but detailed discussions with a select number of students. This gives you great, detailed, qualitative information, but means you're only focusing on a small group of the course. You could go into your lectures and ask your lecturer for 5 minutes before or after the session to ask some questions to students. So hands up if you know how to access the online resources on the Learning Space or Ellie. Hands up if you've attended an induction for stores equipment, so on and so forth. This gets you good quantitative information, so you get some good numbers and statistics, and you may, if you do something like this, want to ask the lecturer to leave the room for 5 minutes so that there is no staff present, which might make it more comfortable for people to talk about things. Suggestion boxes. If you've got a course-specific room or space, you could leave a suggestion box for your course mates to submit anonymous ideas. Polls, not dissimilar to surveys really, but the point of polls is that they're asking one really quick question that people can answer, and you can do this in different online group chats. So I think a Teams group chat would probably have a polls function, and Discord, and possibly even Instagram at this point. So yes, drop-in sessions. So you could say as a rep that you're gonna go to the library every Thursday afternoon to do some work, and let students know that for the last half an hour of that session, so if you're in the library from 1 to 3, from 2:30 to 3, you'll be sat in the library if they want to come and give you feedback. Or you might have a whole course lecture every Friday morning, and you could say every Friday after the whole course lecture, I'll be sat in the library, or I'll be sat in DDM or something like that. I'll be on Teams if you're an online student. So come and give me feedback if you want to chat about anything. So that's the benefit of drop-in sessions. It's a way for people to reach you face-to-face. And yeah, peer-to-peer conversations. Just chat to students on your course. It could be an informal conversation that you then turn into topics that you want to focus on in your surveys. So you might be informally chatting to some students on your course and find out that they're struggling with their group work, and then you might think, okay, let's see if all of the students on this course are struggling with working in a group, and see if there's a way we can resolve that issue, if so. Posters, again, if you have a department-specific space, you could have posters with QR codes to online surveys, or interactive posters. I know that students on Falmouth campus love to put up a piece of paper on a notice board and leave a pen for people to write answers to a question. You could do that as a rep. The pros of this is that it's a different way to reach people. Some cons might be that you might not necessarily be targeting students on your specific course. So just make sure that you can try and make it as specific to your course mates as possible. So rather than leaving the poster up in Falmouth Campus Cafe, put the poster up in the illustration Year 1 studios, and you're going to get feedback from Year 1 students. And finally, university emails. We have a thing on the SU website called the Find My Rep tool, and that allows you guys as reps to email your whole cohort, and you'll find training on that in a separate video. So some other techniques that you can use to collect feedback or sort of curate your feedback, dot voting. This is a technique that you could use as part of a focus group or an interactive session, or you could use it on posters in your department or via an online whiteboard. The whole point of dot voting is that every person gets a certain number of dots or votes, and they assign these dots to subjects that they think are the most important. So you as reps can use this to identify the most popular or common themes on the course. For example, if you're asking students, what's the best part of the course? You can see from this vote that students have voted mostly for field trips and practical workshops. Those are the best parts of the course. You can also see from the colours that each participant has been given 3 votes. So the red dot has voted for field trips, practical workshops, and personal tutoring. And yes, you can see that personal tutoring, library resources, and group crits, or group criticisms like assessments of each other's work, aren't very highly voted for, so maybe there's some issues there. And you can see that field trips and practical workshops are really highly voted for, so are clearly things that students are really enjoying and want to see more of on the course. Or alternatively, you could ask, what part of the course are you struggling with the most? And here you can see that the most voted for issue is managing workload and managing group projects. So you could then ask further questions through an online survey or something else to find out why students are struggling to manage their workload on the course, or what issues are students having within their group projects, and how could those issues be resolved? How could staff help support students with their workload and with their group projects? So that's dot voting, and you can use it to help you collect feedback. You also have the 4 L's, and this is a good way to reflect on something like a module or an assessment or a term of study. It's a reflection tool. It could be used to structure an online survey or to guide a focus group session if you need something to focus the session on, or you could create an interactive poster out of it. So the 4 L's, basically, you ask these 4 questions. What did you love about this term, for instance? What did you learn? What did you loathe? And what did you long for? So what did you love? What did you enjoy about the term? Again, going back to what's going well on the course, it reinforces things that staff should keep doing on the course. What did you learn? Not just like literally what did you learn in your modules, but what did you discover? So maybe students learned how to access equipment from the stores, or they learned how to find information on their modules on the online learning platform that you use, or they discovered how to get a book out of the library for the first time. It perhaps shows what students need more guidance on from lecturers. What did you loathe? Again, what's not going well on the course, or what could be better on the course. It identifies problem areas on the course that need improving. And what did you long for? Basically, this is a different way to ask for new ideas for the course. Students might talk about things that they wished happened on the course that lecturers could introduce. So you can combine the 4 L's with dot voting to see if students share common experiences with what they loved, learned, loathed, and longed for. So if you get students to write down some examples of each of the 4 L's, then give them some dots. They can vote on which ones they agree with that other people have suggested, if that makes sense. So that is collecting feedback in a nutshell. The next section we'll talk about is writing up feedback, and there'll be a little survey section for you to complete on different methods of collecting feedback. So please do that once you've watched this video. Thank you.